Hello out there. It is the Fairy Queen of Shadow Style, MistressBird here, and welcome to the Theater of My Mind, where I show you a little bit about some of the characters that I've played or created and tell you some of the stories about them. I apologize for the fact that I have not done anything in the last couple of weeks. It's been, well, let's just say, very, very busy in my offline life. So I've kind of had a lot of other stuff to do, and then, of course, well, after that, executive dysfunction is a bitch. But I am here now, and we're taking a pause from the Timid No Say series for the time being, because I kind of wanted to get back a little bit to kind of the basis of what this is, which is just me kind of telling stories about characters that I've actually played. And this one in particular has kind of a little special subheading with it, in that it's also kind of going to show my mindset of what I do when I play some of these characters. So I'm on this server that has kind of a living world on there. I've done it in the past with Pathfinder before. This one's 5e centric, set in the world of Feywild. And I have multiple different characters that I've been playing. Maybe we'll get some of the other ones at another time. But one of the most prominent ones, and one of the ones that the people that I've played with like the most, has actually been something kind of unique. Maybe not unique in construction, but unique in how I've kind of treated them. So with that in mind, allow me to introduce you to Feywild Magic Unit Titania Series 22nd Iteration, otherwise known as TI-22. TI-22 is a Pact of the Chain Archfey Patron Warlock built by the High Queen of the Summer Court herself, and my namesake, as kind of a way of creating children, kind of a reproductive act on her part. At least that's how the High Queen sees it. She's there, well, as her name suggests, she is the 22nd of her line. There are other lines as well. The Pericles Heroic series that has also been around as kind of a bit of a companion at times for the adventuring group that TI is a part of. But as far as her representatives on the material plane, TI is one of her most loyal and most faithful. She's, even though, you know, she's got a warlock pact, it's kind of a weird pact. And like I said, the High Queen of the Summer Court kind of doesn't see it as, you know, a transactional thing. It's more just, I am your child. I will provide you with power. Go and explore your powers, my darling child. And, you know, to some kind of extent, you might say, well, wait, doesn't that sound a bit like a god granting powers to like a cleric or a paladin? Kind of, yes. And the Pericles series in particular, one that I created, Pericles 13th iteration, or Perry for short, is actually a paladin, Oath of the Crown paladin in her service. But she doesn't really see herself as kind of a god, because in my mind, the Archfey are, of course, incredibly powerful. Maybe not quite on the level of gods, but they are incredibly powerful. Definitely immortal for the most part. I mean, you can kill them with great effort, but to be fair, in most tabletop RPGs, the same can be said of gods. But the difference for the Archfey is that they don't, A, seek to be worshipped, nor, B, do they let themselves be entrapped by worship. I believe in the words of the High Queen, I have put it, that she sees gods as being constrained by mortal expectations and rules that they did not put upon themselves, whereas she, as a much superior archfey, being a bit of an egocentrist, is only subject to the rules that she agrees to. Even with the paladins that are under her sway, they're less worshipping her and more just kind of her hair, kind of working for her, working under her, which is part of why Perry in particular is over the crown. But to get back to the main meat of the matter, again, she does have warlocks under her, like Archfey tend to do. And this particular one, TI-22, is basically my main character for the most part. As you can see, she is a Warforged because there are very Warforged in Faerun in this particular server, this particular group. She is, of course, a Warforged of Fey creation. Although there are other Warforged of other kinds of constructions about in the work that have come from other different places. And the reason why I went back to the chain with her is I've never used a familiar before playing her. So I went back to the chain so that I could have that lovely little pseudo-dragon that you see on her hand. Usually colored metallic silver, usually shaped like a pseudo-dragon. His name is Oberon. Because I'm nothing if not committing to a theme. But as you can see, she's very much mostly made out of metal. Does wear like some blues and purples on her, because light blues, purples, favorite colors of mine. I mean, even like dark blues. I freaking love dark blues. Like to wear more lighter colors, but don't have enough of those in my anyway. And her arcane focus is actually the crystal that is embedded into her forehead. That is where a lot of her magic comes from. And in this episode, when I describe all the various things that she can do mechanically, I'm going to try and give them in terms of how she looks like right here. Because, again, I kind of want to go with what it is that I do when I get into the mindset of playing her. And before I get into the mechanical part of that and how that relates, for some people who want to get into tabletop RPGs, they might watch things like High Rollers or Critical Role or other places, and they see the nerdy-ass voice actors or the friends or whatever doing voices for their characters, creating voices for their various different characters. And they might feel a little bit intimidated because they might think, oh, well, if I come into this, I've got to act, I've got to learn how to act. I've got to, put on some kind of a voice. And I want to be perfectly clear here. You do not need to do that. You do not need to do that in any way, shape, or form. In fact, let me go back to full face so that you can see me emphasize this. If you don't want to voice act, you don't have to voice act. I have friends that I play with, that I enjoy playing with, that do not give their characters a unique voice or an accent or anything like that. And I have no less fun playing with them than I do with playing with anyone who does bother to give their character a voice. I'm going to stress this one more time, just so you know. You do not have to voice act if you do not want to. Now, with that in mind, I do give TI-22 a voice. In fact, because she is a Warforged, maybe it's the person who like grew up in the nascent days of Steam and whatnot, who was like a teenager and young adult when that started going. But I'm very much influenced by the Portal series, of course, because I've played those games. Very fun puzzle platformer game, both of them. And I freaking love GLaDOS, of course. Just that very sarcastic mechanical voice. And so with TI-22, what I did was I gave her kind of a mechanical cadence to her voice. I do not always make my voice pitched the way that I would for GLaDOS. For instance, if I were to do GLaDOS, I would do kind of more of a digital toning like this. Whereas with TI, I continue to keep an even tone, but I just keep myself at a very mechanical pace, and occasionally use exceptionally long verbiage. And as you can see also, the way I do it, the way that helps me when I'm acting characters, is that they all have their own individual personalities. And I shift my body language in accordance with it. So whenever I have played her patron, the High Queen Titania, I've always kind of sat up a little bit and gesticulated a little bit, give kind of this ethereal air of someone who's both very regal but also very capricious in that manner. Someone that you can respect, but you might want to watch out for. Whereas with TI, I keep my movements very restrained, and my body posture fairly stiff. It's just how it works for me, and when I started doing that from the very beginning, people instantly basically fell in love with TI because she's just so unique. In fact, there were some cases in games that I was in, whenever they had to do some kind of mechanical voice, the DM would be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Here, would you read this in a very mechanical tone to get across this kind of like semi-magical AI kind of a thing? And I'm like, yes, sure. Because I like being helpful like that. But yeah, that's what I like to do with TI there. And I try to give my characters, at least like vocal cadences unique to their character. Maybe not necessarily accents, although I do that a fair bit too. But I just like a little thing to make them different from my normal speaking voice, but also make them very exceptionally distinct. With that in mind, let's finally get into the mechanics. As mentioned, my race is a Warforged and a Warlock. Not very big on the strength. Pretty good on Dex and Constitution. Always good things to have, especially if you're not big on strength. Dex especially important for someone who doesn't wear armor. Intelligence, kind of moderate intelligence. A little tick of wisdom too there, just a little tick of that Feywild, wild, agelessness in there. And then, of course, because she is a warlock, she runs on charisma. Have to give her charisma. At time of recording this, she is a level 8 warlock, which means, of course, she's had the opportunity for like 2 ASIs at this point. Ability score increases. But she's getting into becoming a fairly powerful person, and she's a very dependable person as well. She's managed to gain a lot of friends who have really become tight with her. In fact, one of them's actually kind of like this satyr monk who's also from the Feywild, so they've kind of got a little bit of a shared origin there. Armor class 19. You may notice this, for someone who's primarily a caster, is fairly high. We'll get into why that is when we get into the inventory. But of course, part of that is also just being able to catch mage armor on herself, which I'll explain why later on. And just the fact that she's made out of freaking metal, you know? Proficient in wisdom and charisma saves, although dex and con saves aren't anything to be sneezed at. Fairly even-handed on all the passives. The dark vision, 120 feet. Again, when we get into stats, we'll tell you why on that. Like all warlocks over type, proficient in simple weapons, light armor, cartographer's tools is something she's proficient in. Which has actually helped out on one mission that she was out on with people for a long bloody time. Was out away from their home castle for quite a while, and actually learned how to use, was able to finally use her cartographer's tools to help someone make maps to keep them in there. She's fluent in Common, Elvish, and Sylvan. Of course, Elvish and Sylvan, because again, from the Feywild, and also Deep Speech. And even though Deep Speech is kind of a bonus language that she got, and it's a very fun way that she got this proficiency in this language. There was one game fairly early on into her tenure that she was part of, where the people actually ended up in part of a Fey revelry. And one of the rewards that we got from that mission, once everything was said and done, for making sure that the party was not broken up, what we ended up getting was some languages that some of the Fey creatures took from other people. So when she goes into Deep Speech, it's not her voice, really. It's someone else's voice as speaking in Deep Speech, but she understands what it is that is being said, and she can read Deep Speech. There hasn't really been a huge application for her on that yet, but it's an interesting thing that she's got going on there, and it just goes to show that GMs, when you give out rewards, it doesn't just have to be like money and items. You can give out fun things like languages. You can give them knowledge that they can then later use, that you can pull on as a game hook at a later portion. So don't be afraid to think outside the box when it comes to your rewards, because you can do like all kinds of interesting stuff, and you can set yourself up for things later on. Skills, of course, she's fairly fluent in Arcana. Not super intelligent, but she can pick things up pretty well. Fairly fluent in History. She's very intimidating because, I don't know what you noticed, but she is a featureless, largely physically emotionless robot. Strangely fluent in religion. I don't know why I gave her that proficiency, but it's been kind of an interesting thing that she somehow, when she left the Feywild, picked up some senses of religion, despite, her boss being not that big on gods and stuff, and of course, decently good at survival. All right. When it comes to weaponry, she does carry a crossbow just in case she needs it. Although honestly, she's a warlock. Eldritch Blast. Just bah! Why does she need to carry a crossbow when she has Eldritch Blast? I mean, you never know. Even though it's a cantrip that you can use ad nauseum sometimes, maybe you might want to, do something a little more traditional. It's good to have options. You may notice these two Shadowblade Ranged and Shadowblade Melee that are right here. And I'm going to talk about those when I get into the spell for this, because these are actually two custom macros that I put in on D&D Beyond, two custom attacks on there for that specific spell. I'll go ahead and go into her class features here that she's got here. As I mentioned, Archfey Pact. As a result of that, she has the ability to cast a Fey Presence. Once per short rest, she can cause each creature in a 10-foot cube in front of her to make a Wisdom saving throw or become either charmed or frightened, whatever you choose, until the end of her next turn. And how I depict this for TI is, and I mentioned this earlier, you see that gem that she's got in her forehead. How I depict Fey Presence when that goes off is kind of like the Neuralizer from Men in Black. It's just like that gem just pulses with light like a couple of times and then bright flash, and then suddenly they're charmed or scared, whichever I decide to. In fact, one time I actually used that to convince like some demonic children to go to sleep. I feel like the DM let me get away with that one. But you know what? If the DM lets you get away with something, don't complain about it. Because then they'll realize they let you get away with something, and then they won't let you get away with stuff again. Her Eldritch Invocations that she's got at 8. Devil's Sights, which, if you're a warlock, you're going to want to have this. For one very important reason. Much is mimetically made about how dark vision, about how, half of the races in D&D 5e have dark vision. And that's fine. Here's the thing. What it does is basically give you night vision goggles out to a certain degree in the middle of the night, and it doesn't. That's still kind of a limiting factor on your vision. If you have Devil's Sight, though, you see normally in color for further distance than anyone who has natural dark vision. And, to make matters even better, those folks that have dark vision, they're still blocked out by magical darkness. So if somebody has like a circle of darkness around them, people who have dark vision cannot see that person. But you can, because you got Devil's Sight. You can see straight right through it, because you can see normally in magical darkness. Because your dark vision isn't a natural ability. It's a magical one granted to you by your patron, who has a vested interest in making sure that you don't fucking die. Armor of Shadows, able to cast mage armor at will. So, I'm just going to kind of show that off here. Of course, mage armor, the prototypical wizard spell, 13 plus your dex modifier. Now for Warforged, there's nothing that says that your inbuilt protection, that built-in +1 to AC, there's nothing that says that doesn't stack on top of this. So depending on your dex bonus, like for instance, TI +3 to dex. That means, at minimum, her dex, when she has mage armor going, is 17. Her armor class is 17, which is pretty decent for a caster class. And then you get other items on it, which I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit, like the Bracers of Defense, which give another +2. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a caster that can survive decently well in melee. And granted, if she does get hit, her HP is going to probably drop like a rock, especially if it's something that hits particularly hard. But otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to hit. And with this kind of warlock, there's even ways to make sure that if you do get hit, you're going to be a lot less likely to get hit again for quite some time. We'll get to that, and it's a really interesting thing to do. But back to the invocations. Eldritch Sight. You can cast Detect Magic at will without expending a spell slot. So for TI's purposes, the Devil's Sight is basically like enhanced optical sensors that she can switch on whenever she wants. Mage Armor is her primary defensive matrix in her own terms that, again, she can turn on and off as she wants. Eldritch Sight is basically like arcane sensors that she can activate and keep going so that as she's moving through space, she's got this constant radius where she can go, no magic, no magic, no magic, no magic. That item there possesses considerable arcane qualities. And because it's Detect Magic, not only does she be able to see that it's magic, she can kind of tell what kind of magic is on it very quickly. The last of her bones, of her various different invocations, is one that I got specifically because of Pact of the Chain. Gift of the Ever-Living Ones. You remember how I said that even if TI does get hit, her HP can still drop like a rock because she's only got 59 hit points at level 8? This help mitigates that, because as long as Oberon is anywhere within 100 feet of her, any healing done to her automatically does as much healing as it can do. Whether it's your cleric casting Healing Word on her, or touching her to cure wounds, or herself drinking a potion, if it involves rolling dice, as long as Oberon is within 100 feet, which means like either staying safely on her shoulder or even just out and about scouting, but no more than 100 feet away from her, she automatically heals up for as much as whatever healing is being applied to her can do. And that is a great thing because, again, that keeps her alive. That keeps her into battles. That keeps her doing damage with that Eldritch Blast. That keeps her potentially able to sway the fight with that Fey presence or any of her other abilities. That just gives your team an additional way to make sure, at the very least, that this person does not die. And it's not guaranteed immortality, of course, but it certainly does make sure that you at least are going to be up and about and able to defend your party even while other people are down and needing healing. And of course, that segues appropriately into explaining, well, for those of you who haven't ever used it, what is Pact of the Chain? Pact of the Chain, again, gives you a special familiar. You get the Find Familiar spell that you can cast as a ritual. You still do need the components, which I do still keep on hand. But not only can you cast your familiar in kind of the typical forms, like, cat, bat, etc., but you can also make your familiar an imp, a quasit, a sprite, or, as in the case of Oberon, a pseudo-dragon. And you can forego one of your own attacks to allow Oberon, or whatever your familiar is named, to make an attack with their reaction, which that part I haven't ever used. Because Honestly, because the DM sometimes puts him in his own initiative, especially if he's separated out from TI. Now, Eldritch Versatility. This is one of Natasha's options that I applied to her. Whenever she gets to a level that has the ASI, she can change out her invocations. She can change the pack boon that she's got. She can replace she can replace any of her cantrips. Although I'm kind of fallen into a relative stasis with those, so I don't think any of that's really going to apply until I hit the hour where I start getting the Mystic Arcanum. And Misty Escape. Many a time have I used Misty Escape as a get out of trouble card. Because, again, pretty high AC, but not impenetrable. So if somebody hits, TI can just teleport off to the complete other end of the battlefield, remain invisible until the next turn, and just I either get to safety or get to a appropriate position where she can, use that invisibility to her advantage. And how might she use that to her advantage? Well, I'll get back to the racial traits, by the way, on there a bit ago and kind of explain those. Well, of course, she's got her spells. Eldritch Blast, of course, she's at the level where she can fire off 2 of them. I like to flavor that as one of her arms, like turning into a cannon, kind of Samus Aran or Mega Man style. Lightning Lure, which, of course, is the ever popular Scorpions, get over here! Except with less fire and more lightning. And Mind Sliver is a cantrip that I picked up for recently that I don't think I've gotten to use very much. But it's, as you can see, it's got it's one part psychic damage and one part kind of casting a short-term curse on the person. Detect Magic, Mage Armor, I already went those. These spells I will go into when we talk about the items that she has. But currently, all of her pack slots are 4th level. She's got 2 4th level pack slots. This is kind of the thing for warlocks. They don't have a lot of magic, but what their magic is usually very powerful, and they can recover these at a short rest. So, usually, if you take one short rest, it's like 4 big spells a day. And here are the spells that she has. Banishment. You can cast She can banish a creature. She can make it disappear into its either home plane of existence or a harmless demi-plane for a certain period of time. Give your friends time to get healed up if they're in trouble spot, or just send it home and tell it to fuck off. Dimension Door. Come with me if you want to live. Or as T.I. would say it, if you wish to continue your existence on the mortal plane, it is recommended that you accompany me. Which, I mean, I've used before. Just like grab hands with somebody, teleport. You've probably seen somebody use it before, especially if you watch Critical Role. I do believe Scanlan Shorthalt used that quite a bit on there. Dispel Magic. So that when you use that, you can... any spell that is lower on your spell, which, because of her current level, 4th level, you can just... If it's an active effect, it's just no. Find Familiar, we talked about that with Pact of the Chain. Hellish Rebuke. Tieflings get this automatically a lot. It's another way where if they do actually manage to hit you, you can just say, emergency countermeasures activate, and just incinerate whoever hits you, assuming that they don't make the dex save. But well, even if it does have damage at 5d10, that's still pretty toasty. Hex, because, Warlock. Extra d6 whenever you hit him with an attack, so pretty good for doing a little extra on those Eldritch Blasts. A lot of these spells are concentration, so if you use them, you're probably not going to be able to use much else. Mind Spike went with that psychic damage again on there. Because this one, if they fail to save, not only do they take the psychic damage, but they can't hide. Ever. Ever, ever. As long as that spell is active, which is at least an hour, they are anywhere they go. As long as they're on the same plane of existence, I will find you. And I will kill you. Remove Curse. This actually came into play in that, again, that one session where we were out away from the castle for like a long time. TI actually specifically learned this on the level up to make sure that these one group of kind of shady monks that seemed to be kind of run by some kind of devilish entity wasn't fucking with them. So use that to like actively remove the curse on this bit of tree that they were supposed to take back to the heart of the forest to heal it. Because they felt like still wanting kosher here, so she basically installed an antivirus program onto herself in order to clear that. And now finally we come to Shadowblade. And now I can explain why I have these two macros on here. Shadowblade, you initially cast it as a bonus action on yourself. And it is a concentration spell. And as long as that spell is up, either 1 minute or until you dispel it or lose concentration on it, what it does is it gives you a free melee weapon that you have on hand that you can use to slash things. And that is why I have these two things on there. You can just like throw it like you would a dagger, and it still does at this current level 3d8 psychic damage. Still has a +3 on there for the attack, the damage bonus on there. I don't know why. I have never been able to remove it, but it's no big deal. DMs usually allow it anyway, or the ones that I play with. Yours might not, but you don't. If that's the case, then you don't have to do a macro like this. I just do this because it's a lot easier for me to remember. But yeah, you can throw the blade to do psychic damage, but then you need to use a bonus action on your either on your current turn or on your next turn to bring it back. Or you can just keep it on, use it as a melee weapon. It's constantly active, and you just every turn as your action. You do have to attack as an action, because again, you resummon it as a bonus action whenever you drop it or throw it. Moreover, you get advantage on the attack if you are currently in dim light or darkness, because it is a shadow blade. It is basically just like weaponized darkness, dark psychic energy in your hand. And this, aside from Eldritch Blast, is usually TI's primary form of attack. In addition to a Hellfire Dagger that she got at one point from some dealings with some fiends. because she is both of Fey origin and just generally just feeling out the world as she goes, I don't think it really sinks in on her that the one time that she's killed someone with this dagger that they have been dragged to hell. But but that's what that dagger does, and often, she will dual wield the Shadow Blade in one hand and the Hellfire dagger in other, and just that's just how she goes. And that actually segues back into the inventory. I showed off the Bracers of Defense. That's a recent addition for her. She does keep superior healing potions on hand. Potion of Thunder Resistance, because she is made of metal. She doesn't follow the same rules as constructs, but it's still good to have that resistance on there. And then the one other item that I have gotten from a DM for some strange reason that they still let me have is from the Acquisitions Incorporated book, the Failed Experiment Wand. What it does is let you cast either 3rd or 4th level of either Fireball or Lightning Bolt, whichever you pick. 1 charge for 3rd level, both charges for 4th level. 4th level. You regain those charges every day. And if you use up all the charges, you have to roll a d20, and on a natural one, the wand is destroyed. Fortunately, that has not happened to me yet. But, this does give me a little additional versatility, because I have either 2 fireballs, 2 lightning bolts, or 1 fireball and 1 lightning bolt that I can go. Or if I really want to do like a big freaking hit, I can either drop a 4th level fireball or shoot out a 4th level lightning bolt whenever I want. In addition to that, the Hellfire Dagger, the Light Crossbow, I've already mentioned those. Some Alchemist Fire Flask, because you never know when you're going to need fire. And last but not least, not last but not least, because I do need to go through some of the description stuff, some of the other flavors. Again, the Integrated Protection, which is why that armor class is a 19 and not an 18. Again, there is no rule that says that does not stack with mage armor or any other kind of a shield bonus that you have. Mage armor is just the same as if you were wearing proper armor on there. So, mage armor, integrated protection, bracers of defense, that's how I get my 19 AC there. Sentry's Rest. It means basically that her long rest is not necessarily a full 8 hours. And she's not entirely asleep, which is not to say that she can't go to sleep if she wants to. But this is just kind of a passive mode where she's just got like peripheral attention in case something happens. And then Constructed Resilience, it's actually really interesting. It says here, you have resistance to poison damage and immunity to disease. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. And I usually stick to the fact that TI does not need to eat. However, the thing is, she does sometimes eat or drink. She doesn't need to, but she sometimes does. And she does have a place to put it if she does. There was actually one instance where she and that satyr that I previously mentioned, who's a monk, the monk actually kind of wanted to see if she could get drunk. And The DM rolled that it is kind of a poisoning effect. So I did have the advantage on con saves on there. And the thing is, a Warforged can technically get drunk, apparently. It's just really hard. Because of that advantage on there. I think it took like a ton of the highest quality alcohol that was available at this one bar for either of us to get drunk. And of course, the monk got drunk before T.I. did. And even funnier, when she was in this drunken state, it affected her magic to where it basically kind of put her under wild magic rules. Like, she had just learned how to do Dimension Door in that system. And she like showed one of her companions. She kind of like did the hey, y'all watch this, except in her case it'd be like, observe what I am capable of performing. And cast Dimension Door, and when she got outside, she was invisible for like a minute. It was freaking silly, and I love it. Yeah, I think I've already gone through the description, kind of shown what her personality is through some of the stuff that I described. She's a very respectful person because, of course, she's from the Feywild. Respect, hospitality, those are things that are ingrained into the ecosystem of the Feywild and to the Fey courts on there. You don't eat or drink something that is not given to you. You know, you show your deference to the people that you are there. If you make a contract with them, you stick to it, usually to the letter rather than to the spirit. Because of course there's that whole exact words thing in Blue and Orange morality, which she's kind of got her own little bit of Feywild tweaks and how she manages things. But her internal calculations do kind of skew altruistic on there. She judges people by how they act rather than how they speak, because again, exact words things, you kind of got to watch out for that. She's very confident in herself, and that's why I kind of gave her the inheritor background, because she is again very much not just a warlock in service to the Queen of the Summer Court, the High Queen of the seasonal courts of Archfey. But she is also that Queen's child. She is, to a lesser degree, a Fey princess, although not so much in terms of like line of succession, but in how her patron sees her. You know, it's less of you are my tool and my vessel in this world. Go and do strange things in my name. No, it's more of a, I have created you. I want to see what you can do. Go, learn, grow, and when it is time, come back and bring your knowledge back to the Feywild. So that's kind of how that goes, and that's T.I. in a nutshell. You know, she's got her own quirks on there. She's very much very calculating. Sometimes comes to the right answer by a strange path. But she's ultimately a good girl. She's a girl that people like and that people want to adventure with and hope to have on their side and consider her friend. And even in times when she's kind of doubted her own abilities, felt like she's miscalculated, even Mama Titania is like, nah, kid, You're doing fine. And in the end, I think we all want to have like that little feeling in our life that even when we're doubting ourselves, we're doing okay. We're doing the best we can, and we're learning, and that's the important thing. Well, I hope you've learned something from this story. The main takeaways are, of course, if you don't want to voice act, you don't have to. But if you do, commit to sparkle motion. Try to. You don't even necessarily do an accent. Just like do whatever you need to do to make that character feel alive to you. Because when that character feels alive to you, they're going to feel alive to the people that you're playing with. Don't be afraid to consider alternate ways of thinking about your class and race combination. Like, I affectionately refer to myself as a real-life artificer for that reason, because I like thinking about what it is that I'm doing and coming to perhaps conventional ways by different paths, which is very much in line with TI-22 now that I think about it. And of course, whenever your primary plan fails, try to have a backup plan in place. If you learned anything from TI, I hope you learned those things. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please share it, like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All those things that make the algorithm do its voodoo. Until next time, I'm Titania Bird. Queen of Shadow Style, and this RoboGal's patron. Until next time, show's over. I shall take my bow. Love ya.